I'm just going to have to move this cat, and this cat's been sitting behind me in many of my videos, waving away, doing its thing, and little did I know, but it's been playing havoc with the autofocus on my camera. And in a few of my videos, just noticed the frame was kind of wobbling around in a weird way. The focus wasn't quite as sharp as it should have been, and I've been online trying to get to the bottom of things. Thought there was a problem with my camera, with the lens, but no, it turns out it's this guy, and he was distracting the autofocus mechanism. So I'm afraid the cat has to go. In this video, I want to try something slightly different, and some of you might have seen that a few weeks ago I did a demo or a review for Eastwood Guitars for their Backland Rockabox 2. And for that video I put together an original piece of music. It's kind of a rockabilly, rock and roll style thing, and a few people have got in touch and said that they'd be interested in learning how to play that piece. So I'm going to be breaking it down for you in this video, and I also hope that this video gives me an opportunity to talk about some things that I don't usually talk about in my videos, so things like creativity, composition and recording. Now I'm going to begin by playing you a clip from that original video for those of you who've not already seen it, just so you can hear what we're dealing with here, and then I'm going to break things down for you and talk about how it was written, what's going on, and also of course I'm going to be showing you some hot licks. So there we go. Now I hope it doesn't come across as too egotistical, me showing you how to play my own composition, and that's certainly not my intention. And I'm not claiming that this is the greatest piece of music, though I was fairly happy with how it turned out. And I hope that inside this piece of music there's going to be some things of interest to you. So I'm going to be discussing chord voicings and inversions. We got lots of rockabilly style double stop licks, going to be talking about chord tone soloing. So hope that some of you find it mildly interesting. So I got this guitar to review, and unfortunately I don't still have it. I had to send it back, so I'm going to be playing my Jazzmaster today. But whenever I get a guitar or a pedal to review, I'll have a mess around with it, and I want to put something together that's going to best showcase the sounds of that particular guitar or pedal. And for this particular guitar, it seemed to invite a rockabilly or rock and roll style piece of music. And also this Rockabox 2 guitar has been described as retro futuristic, so that put me in mind of 60s instrumental music, 60s TV themes. So those were the kind of ideas that were flying around my head when I was trying to put something together. And my starting point for this one was just a tempo and a drum feel. I think when you're writing music, you don't always have the same starting point. Sometimes the starting point is going to be something on the guitar, a riff or a chord progression. Sometimes it's going to be a rhythmic thing which inspires you. If you're writing songs, it might be some lyrics that come as the starting point. But for this one, it was just a drum feel. So I set up a Pro Tools session and I just programmed in a quick drum beat. And if I can figure things out technically, I'm just going to invite you inside the Pro Tools session for this review. And Pro Tools is what I use to record all the audio for my videos. I record the video and the audio separately and then sync them together just so you've got the best audio quality. And Pro Tools, I just always use that right from the start. It's not necessarily the best DAW, but it's the one that I'm most comfortable with. And you can see here that I've got a drum track and I've just programmed in that surf beat with MIDI notes here. The drums I'm using for this particular track are samples from something called BFD3, and most often with my videos I'm going to be using drum samples. I've occasionally attempted to record real live drums for a video, but it just seems kind of overkill for a YouTube video and it takes absolutely ages to record drums properly. So usually I'm using samples, but I want those samples to sound as convincing and as realistic as possible. And I've got various different drum sample libraries. So I've got BFD3, I've got a Contact player with some other drum samples in it. I've got loads and loads of loops and things, but generally I tend not to use loops. I prefer to program the actual drum part, then you can get closer to the actual feel that you've got in mind. And BFD3 is pretty good. I mean, it has got its limitations. It can be frustrating. It does take quite a lot of tweaking, but if you're patient, you can get some pretty good sounding, convincing drum tracks, I think. So that drum track was my starting point. Then I just grabbed the guitar and messed about for an hour or two until some ideas started to come, until I found an idea that I thought I could use as a starting point. And for this piece of music, it was just that simple opening riff. The riff goes like this. So nice simple riff, but I thought it was quite catchy. It's fairly generic. I might have even stolen it from somewhere, but I can't think exactly where, so I'm going to claim that it's original. And we're in the key of E. It's kind of based on an E or an E7 chord sound. Just got that low E string and then sliding up to the 7th fret, and then kind of a pentatonic melody. So then it was just a question of where do I take this riff? Where does it want to go? And for a piece like this, kind of a rock and roll style piece, I didn't want to go too out there harmonically. So the obvious thing to do is just to take that riff to the 4 chord. So we're starting on E or E7. Take it to the 4 chord, A7. Back to the 1. And again, the obvious thing to do next would be to go to the 5 chord, B7. But I didn't want to be too obvious here. I didn't want this to be a 12-bar blues structure. So instead of going to the 5 chord there, what I did is I went to the 2 chord instead, or the 2 dominant chord. So an F sharp 7. Take that down 1 fret to an F7. And then back to the 1. And then just repeat that. And then stop. And finally we get the 5 chord right at the end of the cycle, so just playing a B7. So that's given me a good starting point. I've got a tempo and a drum feel, and I've got some kind of harmonic structure. So I think my next step was to build up the track a little bit, just to get a bit more of a vibe happening before I thought about the specifics of the guitar part. So I laid down some bass, and that seemed to want to just double the guitar riff for the most part. And then I thought I'd add some organ. So this is a Farfisa organ for that kind of 60s TV theme kind of feel. And I think that's from an Arturia plugin. then I think I added some tambourine, some real tambourine. And I often think when you're dealing with programmed drums and MIDI, it's quite a good idea to add some real human feel with some percussion or some other rhythmic elements. And especially when your tambourine playing is as bad as mine, it gives you that authentic, human, slightly out of time feel. Let's get into some of the specifics of this guitar part then. And the piece is really in two halves. The first half, I wanted a kind of theme or main melody, and that was very much composed. And then in the second half, I'm playing over the same chords, but I take a solo, and that's much looser and more improvised. So looking at the main theme then, and the first lick is this one. So this is played over the one chord, over an E7 chord, and it's all based on 6. Kind of Mixolydian 6, I suppose. I've done a video on this. It's just these 6 shapes that fit the sound of a dominant 7th chord. I'm starting with this. So it's a G sharp and an E. So fret 13 on the 3rd string and 12 on the top string. And just taking that down 2 frets, and then you've got 2 more 6 shapes. I think I'm actually just playing the top note of these shapes here. So C sharp and B. And then a kind of rock and roll lick. It's E minor pentatonic here in the 7th position. Just starting off with this nice rock and roll double stop sound. So 7 on the top string and 8 on the B string, giving that a bit of a bend. So that's the opening phrase, and then I play that phrase again, but I'm taking it down an octave and I'm just developing it a little bit more. So very simple rule of composition, I think. Come up with an idea and then just repeat it, or repeat it with some kind of variation. It always works. So I'm just playing that same pair of notes, but here. So I've got, what is that, 11 on the A string and 9 on the G string. Down 2 frets, C sharp and B, and then just hitting chord tones here, so hammering into that G sharp, that's the 3rd of the E7 chord, and there's the root, and then I think I just play this little double stop accent, that's G sharp and D. And then we're heading to the 4 chord with this lick. And I think I'm going into this lick just before the 4 chord arrives. So I'm thinking A7 2 or 3 beats before A7 actually arrives. It's kind of anticipating the chord change. I quite often do that, and it's just a good way of adding a bit of momentum to a piece of music. So here I'm thinking A7, I've got a double pull off, 7 6 5 on the top string, 8 to 5 on the B, and then I've got this enclosure idea. I spoke about this the other week, where you've got a target note. In this case it's a C sharp, which is the 3rd of an A7 chord, and I'm just going 1 fret above, 1 fret below, and then I'm hitting that target, so we're enclosing that target note. Very useful technique, particularly in rockabilly. You find it a lot in jazz as well. And then kind of going up through some different inversions of A or A7. So I've got an A triad here then. This is giving me an A7 sound, so I'm thinking about it as belonging to this chord shape here. So we got 7, 9, 8 and 9. That's an A7 chord. I'm just playing the top 3 strings here. And I'm going up to the next inversion really. So this is frets 12, 10 and 12. Often thinking those kind of inversions on the top 3 or 4 strings if you know your A7 shapes. Can be a very good source of interesting chord voicings. And in a piece like this I wanted to thicken out the sound, so lots of double stops, triple stops and 4-note chords. So all of that is played on the A7 on the 4 chord, and then we're heading back to the 1 chord. So I'm just moving this shape down chromatically until we hit that E7 chord, that E7 sound. It just frets 7, 5 and 7. More E7 stuff. This is one of my favourite E7 or E9 in this case voicings. So fret 12, 11, 9 and 12. Good E9 voicing, used quite a lot in blues, this one. And then we've got this. Even more E7 stuff. So it's that same 3-note shape that we were using over A7. Now I've got it down here, 4, 3 and 4. That's giving us an E7 sound, and just moving that around a little bit as well chromatically. Then we're heading to that F sharp 7 to F move. And I'm just keeping things very simple here, just playing the chords really, or chord tones. So just thinking notes from that F sharp 7 chord, and all I'm playing is this. So it's the same shape that we were using for E7, that little 3-note shape. Take it up 2 frets. That's giving you F sharp 7. Move it down 1 fret, that's giving you F7. And then I've just got a little kind of rockabilly lick. So essentially the lick is just this. Just an E blues scale lick, but I've got some droning open strings in there which just add a bit more interest. So just playing double stops there, particularly like that little minor second dissonance in there. Then I'm back to my F sharp 7 lick. And then the first chorus is ending with this lick. So a kind of flashy rockabilly lick, but it's not actually that hard to play. It's just kind of a pattern based thing that I'm just taking across the strings. So the idea is this. We're starting at the 2nd fret on the top string, then the 3rd fret, and then a double pull off, and then just taking that down, ending on the root note, and then hitting that B7 5 chord. Let me put all of that together for you. Then we have the riff again, kind of little re-intro, and then it's solo time. And as I said, the solo is a little bit more off the cuff. I think I had a vague idea of the kind of shape that I wanted the solo to take. I wanted it to start quite sparsely and to build. There was one little lick that I did want to get in there, this one. But other than that, it wasn't really planned. I wanted to leave room for a little bit of spontaneity. So I started off like this with some more double stops, and we had so we've got frets 4 and 3 on the G and B, sliding up to frets 9 and 8, and just going between those two shapes. So really just thinking of those notes as coming from the E minor pentatonic scale. So then just a bit of E minor pentatonic there before I launch into the fast licks. All of that stuff is played over the 1 chord. We go to the 5 chord, and this is the lick I'm playing. So another one of these flashy sounding licks that aren't actually that hard to play. So I'm starting the 11th fret on the G, I'm playing the 12th fret and then pulling off down to the 9th fret. So, and then hitting this C sharp note at fret 11 on the D string. So, now I think about it, it's actually quite similar to this lick, but we're playing it a bit higher up the neck and over the 4 chord. So just repeating that phrase several times. Then I'm just moving it up 3 frets. And now the notes are belonging to the E blues scale. So I like it when this happens, where you've got one simple lick, you can just move it around and you can get some more mileage out of it. So that's the next bit of the solo. Then I think we've got some more double stops, so something like this. So playing quite loosely here, maybe a little bit messily. I think with this solo I just wanted attitude and vibe over precision. So I'm just playing some pentatonic or blues based double stops down in the open position. I got a little unison bend up at the 12th fret. And some more double stops. All of that is played over the 1 chord. Then we're heading to this 2 dominant chord, going down to the F7 chord, and here I'm just playing this. So more double stops, similar to what I was playing in the first chorus actually. We just got an E and an A sharp, and those are again chord tones. It's the flat 7 and the 3rd of the F sharp 7 chord. Just taking that down 1 fret to fit the F7 chord, and then I think there's just some more E minor pentatonic stuff. And repeat these double stops, and the solo ends something like that. So we've got this kind of rock and roll double stop shape, 15 on the top string, 12 on the B, giving that a bit of a bend or some vibrato, hit the low E string, and then that 5 chord, that B7. So that's the solo. Let me try and put all of that together for you. Let me give you a quick rig rundown of the gear that I'm using today. And as I said, I had to send back the guitar that I used in that initial video, so I'm using some slightly different gear today. The guitar is my Jazzmaster 65 reissue Jazzmaster, and that's going into a Vox AC30. I'm using a couple of pedals as well. The delay is coming from a Catlin Bred Belle Epoque Deluxe for that rockabilly slapback sound. And once again, overdrive is coming from the small speaker overdrive by Great Eastern Effects. And it's a great sounding pedal. It's becoming my overdrive pedal of the moment, I think. And I spoke about it a little bit in last week's video. And in fact, I think I was using it slightly wrongly in last week's video. It still sounded really good to my ears, but apparently it's one of those pedals that doesn't like to have other pedals before it in the chain, particularly if those pedals have got a buffered bypass. It's like vintage fuzzies or Rangemaster style pedals. They like to see the signal coming directly from the pickup. So that's what I'm doing today. I've got it first in the chain and sounding really, really good. That's it for this video. I hope you found it interesting. I have, of course, tabbed all of this out. It took me quite some time actually, because there are quite a lot of notes, lots of whittling, but that's all done now. You can find that on my Patreon page along with the backing track. You can sign up there, pay what you like. You get access to this tab and my whole back catalogue of tabs and backing tracks. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time.